Okay, we've made our way now over to Estherville, and we're going to start our locations here in Estherville, here. And Dad, kind of self-explanatory, I suppose, but where are we?
Now we are in a cemetery called Oak Hill Cemetery. It's on the west side of Estherville. This is where my parents are buried, obviously, and had a sister that passed away at 7 months old. Is also buried here.
Okay.
My brother has ashes that have been, some of his ashes have been spread here as well. There is, I think, space for one more person. I believe my sister is going to be coming in here.
All right. Let's see. Well, just give us your thoughts, I suppose, on. Let's start with your parents, whichever one you want to. With your parents, whichever one you want to go with.
Well,
Tell us about them.
Dad was the first one that passed away, and he passed away at the age of 87 or 88. And he had Alzheimer's, had been living in the veterans home at Marshalltown for about a year before he passed away. He had a massive heart attack in the lunchroom, and I was told that he had probably died before he hit the floor. So he went fast. Now that's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
My mom passed away in 2016. She'd had a fall and just could never quite get recovered from that, and eventually died of a massive heart congestion. Massive isn't the right word. Her heart gave out.
Sure.
Anyway, there was too much other stuff going on, just couldn't pump hard enough. So,
yeah.
And she passed quietly, though. She passed away in a hospital in Marshalltown. And my sister was had spinal meningitis, which at the time was pretty much a fatal disease.
Yeah.
Not so much now, but it was back then, and died at the age of 7 months. She wasn't very old. I really don't know very much about her. At the time, I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. So
Yeah.
I don't really know too much about her. And my brother has some of the he has some of his ashes that are spread here, and he died he was 11 months younger than I am, and he passed away in 2017 or 18. I'll have to look that up. But,
yeah.
That's kind of the.
Yeah. So let's talk more about them individually. Let's start with Grandpa. In fact, I've got his flag and his medals and such from when he was in the Army. Let's talk first about that facet of his life. You and I talked about a little bit on the drive up.
Yeah.
Did he talk much about his service?
Yeah, he was actually one of the older people. He was in his 20s. I think he was 21 or 22 when he went into the service. Might even have been 23, which at the time was kind of considered older. Most of the guys going into the service were in their late teens. He went in and because he had the ability to type.
Yeah.
Great skill anyway, but he went into the Signal Corps and was stationed in the Philippines throughout World War II. And made numerous landings in the islands of the Philippines, and I believe you have a piece of shrapnel that went into a tree right above his head.
Yeah, that's.
He says may have had his name on it, but luckily he got to the ground before it got him.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. You're saying there's some, there's some sort of what do I want to say here? I forget the word that she used, but there was something that came in. And he knew the shrapnel was
artillery.
Yeah,
I think they were being
yeah,
shelled by artillery, and it's one of those things. I certainly don't have any experience, and I certainly don't want the experience of being able to hear artillery coming in,
Yeah.
or shells coming in, and the whistling sound that apparently came with it. But
yeah,
if they could hear it, they knew it was time to hit the dirt.
yeah.
He did. He heard it and hit the dirt and saved his life.
Yeah, it's a wild story for sure. So what did Grandpa do as far as a job goes outside of the army?
I think he did a lot as far as it was kind of in the whenever they had the beachhead made, he was in part of where the communications operation was set up. I think at times he went out and laid wire.
Yeah.
So that they could communicate with the field a little bit,
Yeah.
which laying the wire, particularly in the Philippines and the rugged terrain, was, I'm sure, very difficult.
Yeah. So that's what he did while he was there. When he came back outside of the army, what did he do for an occupation?
His occupation, at one time, he worked as far as I know anyway, his first job was working in a jewelry store. And he did that for a short time in Estherville. Then I'm not sure exactly what happened, whether there was a downturn in the economy or what exactly it was, but he was without a job, and so he took a job as a vacuum cleaner salesman, went door to door. And I know this was a very hard and difficult time in their life, in my mom and dad's life, because he only sold one vacuum cleaner in the entire year that he was a salesman. So I'm sure that was very hard. And then he went to work for the greenhouse, the florist shop in Estherville. He was absolutely gifted as somebody who could raise flowers, plants, vegetables, whatever it was. He had a green thumb, there's no doubt about it. And he worked there for, I can't tell you how long it was, but for a number of years, and eventually went into the post office and worked with the post office, I would say from the time I was in junior high school, probably up until the time he retired. Yeah, he worked in Estherville to start with, and in 2000, no, that's not right. In 1970, he transferred to Southern California and worked there until he retired in 1988. And they moved back to Estherville and spent their retirement in Estherville, started their retirement in Estherville for about 6 to 8 years, and then they moved to Texas to be with my sister and her family. Then I moved them back to Tama.
Yeah.
After a while, or until they got to the point where they started to need a little bit more supervision. I thought I could do a better job than my sister. So I moved them back to Tama where they could be closer to us. And eventually, because of the Alzheimer's and my mom's inability to deal, he also had diabetes and did not take real good care of himself, and my mom had some trouble being able to deal with him when that happened. And so I made her move Dad into the VA.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I do have a story from when he was in the service.
Yeah.
He told me, he didn't tell me a lot about his service time, but he did tell me one time when, because he was in the South Pacific and they were on a lot of islands, he said one of the things they did, or that the troops did when they were there, was they would take coconuts and do whatever they did to them to ferment the coconut milk on the inside, and then they would drink it. And he said guys would get pretty polluted. And one time, a bunch of, they were actually inland on an island. It was pretty sandy where they were, but the boys thought they were on the beach and they were diving into the sand. They stayed out there so doggone long that their backs and legs and everything just got sunburned so bad they blistered and
Oh, jeez.
had to go into the infirmary. So anyway, he thought that was funny.
So how would you describe Grandpa as a person?
Grandpa was, he was apparently, and I don't know much, I have no background history, I can't tell you anything about it. Liked sports a lot. I know he played softball, fast pitch softball for quite a while. But he's the reason that I got involved in sports. One of my first toys apparently was a ball.
Yeah.
And so I can remember playing catch baseball with him at an early age and always being interested in sports, and I know I got that from him. He also was very artistic.
Mm-hmm.
I am not. I unfortunately did not get that gene at all. I took after my mother in that respect. But my brother Craig had that gene. He also was very artistic, and both of them just said, and I'm losing my voice again, I'm sorry. Had an ability to see things and be able to place plants and flowers and draw pictures and do things that just were beautiful.
Yeah.
I know for our church, Dad designed a kind of it was a mural, but it was done in a weird, not weird, in a real different way of the town of Bethlehem.
Mm.
For their Christmas thing, and it was, what he did was he took panels of plywood, and I can't tell you how many there were. I know there were at least 6.
Yeah.
But on each panel, then he would draw a different view or a different set of buildings that, as he in his mind saw the town of Bethlehem.
Yeah.
And then they had the manger in front of that.
Mm.
So it's pretty cool.
That is cool. And you look just like him, and I look just like you.
Good or bad, I don't know. Yes, I look like my father. My father looked exactly like my grandfather. I always thought it was something that was passed down through the men of the Nitz family. But one of my distant cousins showed me a picture of what would have been my great-grandmother and great-grandfather. It's actually my great-grandmother that they looked like.
Interesting.
Didn't look anything like my great-grandfather at all. But it was my great-grandmother. So that was a surprise, for sure.
That's interesting. And as I've talked about in some of the other videos, Grandpa used to take me fishing all the time. I used to really enjoy that. That was a lot of fun.
Well,
you'd come sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes you'd just
Dad,
take me.
When I was young, we used to go fishing quite often. We would go to, there were several lakes around Estherville. Hingham Lake was one of the ones that we really went to a lot. Sunfish down there.
Yeah.
Caught perch. I know we always went in a rowboat. It was never a motorboat. It was always a rowboat. But there was this one spot on Hingham Lake that we would go to, and we always caught perch there. And I caught a monster perch one time. I mean, it was a big one. Even Dad thought it was pretty good size. But, and there was another lake that was called Iowa Lake that was right on the Iowa-Minnesota border, that was east and north of Estherville. There was another lake north of Superior, and I can't remember the name of that lake now.
Yeah.
And certainly we went over to the Iowa Great Lakes from time to time. Dad didn't like going there so much because it was so busy. But, we went occasionally.
Yeah.
I know he took you and I one time to the north end of Big Spirit Lake. I can remember this, and we were fishing and there, but he hadn't been fishing apparently for a while, but he had really large hooks, and it was too big for the fish that were in that area. And one of the guys that was fishing close to us gave us some smaller hooks, and we were able to catch a couple.
Oh, nice. Huh, I remember that. All right, well, let's switch over then to Grandma. Grandma, and it's Betty. She was a teacher.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I guess what my teaching aptitude came from Mom. She was an elementary teacher and taught off and on throughout the years. When I and my brother and sister were small, she was a stay-at-home mother, but she definitely liked to teach, and she was very strict. Nothing new about that. Both of my parents were very strict, and I was I was considered the rebel in the family. I was the one that could not and would not obey the rules. And
so Sarah and Heather took after you, huh?
What's that?
Sarah and Heather took after you, huh?
I would say that's probably correct. But Mom was always very busy. Was a good homemaker. Worked hard. She was Dutch, so everything being clean was extremely important to her. Neat and orderly, and everything in its place. She taught at Lincoln School in Estherville as long as I can remember. I think I know she started out at a school on the west side of Estherville across the river, and I cannot remember I think it's called McKinley, but I'm not positive. Then she, and I know she taught at Roosevelt School for a while as well. But Lincoln is a place that I pretty much remember her teaching all the time. She taught on the top floor at Lincoln.
And we were talking about this yesterday because we were over in Orange City, and you're saying that she took a lot of classes. She had to have had more education than most women in her day.
Yeah, and that's was kind of an unusual thing. She went to Northwestern College, and when she went there, it was a 2-year school. She got her degree, got her teaching degree, and went out teaching. And through the years, she got her bachelor's degree from a college in Lamar's, and I still cannot remember the name of it. I know it started with W, but at least that's what my brain is telling me. But and then she took some graduate classes. I don't know that she ever got her master's degree, but took continuing education throughout the years, different places around Estherville.
And how would you describe Grandma as a person?
Grandma was easier on me than Grandpa, but she could be pretty tough too. I can remember when we were very little, and again, this goes back to the days when spankings were not considered to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Unless you were getting spanked. But I can remember her coming after my brother and I one time because we'd stayed away from home much longer than we were supposed to.
Yeah.
And she had, if you are aware of sucker branches that grow at the bottom of a tree, they're real whippy. And she came after us with one of those, and oh my goodness gracious, did we run for home.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, she was a good mother though. She always cared about us and wanted the best for us. She was the one that I think probably, certainly in me, instilled the desire to go to college.
Sure. Yeah, she. I mean, look, when she was taking care of me when you were, elsewhere, or whatever, um, when we were staying with her or whatever, she was. I thought she was. She was always. She took care of us really well. She fed us really well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know she. One of the things that I can remember she really took a lot of look forward to doing was every Easter buying an Easter dress for Sarah
Mm-hmm.
and Heather. I'm sure she probably bought something for you too, some clothes. I don't remember you so much, but I
No.
definitely remember that buying the dresses for the girls
Yeah.
every Easter.
Yeah. Um, and in fact, I remember she had I think anyway, maybe you can set me straight. She had a little like name tag that said Mrs. Knits on it. I think she gave mom, and the mom gave to Kate as well.
Yeah, that was a desk thing that had Mrs. Knits on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, she gave that to Diane, and she used that while Diane was teaching, and then Diane passed that on to Katie.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, let's talk about Craig as well. As you mentioned, he's only 11 months younger than you, so I imagine you guys.
Yeah, Craig was
pretty close.
probably about everything as opposite as could be for me. I was an athletic person. He was a fine arts person. As I mentioned, was a rebel. He was not. He was the golden child. Um, he was a straight A student, or nearly straight A student. I didn't take it quite that seriously. I was decent, but I was not straight A, and I didn't ever try to be. He did. He would come home and he would read his textbooks into a recorder, and then listen to the recordings at night when he went to bed, so that it would help him remember what he was supposed to know for his classes.
Jeez.
He was also Dad and I were right-handed. Mom, Craig, and Marcia were all left-handed.
Okay, interesting. So he, as I think, as long as I've been alive, he lived out in California. And when did he go out there, and why, if you remember? Well,
it's kind of an interesting story too. Well, I don't know. It's interesting to me anyway.
Yeah.
When I had graduated from high school and was getting ready to go to college. I went to Iowa Lakes Community College for 2 years. I graduated from there in 1970. My brother went there after he graduated high school, went there the first year, 1969, or 1970, I'm sorry. And at the end of the summer of 1970, my parents had decided they were going to move to Southern California. Well, I was dating your mother at the time,
Yeah.
and I had no intention of going anywhere except for where she was.
Yeah.
And again, I think because I was more of a rebel than anybody else, I just made it very clear that I had no interest in moving to California.
Yeah.
And so they allowed me to stay and go to UNI to school, but my brother did not know that he may have had a choice. He didn't want to go to California either, but because he was so compliant with all of their wishes all the time and did what they wanted him to do, he just went along with them. And
Yeah.
so that's how he got to California. And he went to a college out there called Saddleback Community College, and took, I think, every course they probably had. He was there for at least 3 years. Then he transferred back to the University of Iowa and lived in Iowa City for a number of years. He never graduated. He eventually went to work for Ma Bell. At that time it was Bell was
Yeah.
the telephone company, and worked in the Iowa City area for a while, and then eventually transferred back out to California and worked for whatever they had the breakup of the Bell system, and he went to work for one of the baby Bells.
Yeah.
And MCI, I think it became, and
Yeah.
something else after that, and I don't know what it was, but
Yeah.
he worked for them until he retired, and retired rather comfortably. He was at one time was in management, did not like that, and went back to being one of the peons, and enjoyed that much more.
And he, to me, looked more like Grandma. You looked more like Grandpa. He looked more like Grandma.
Yeah, and that was a strange. I guess it's strange. When I had hair, I had blonde hair.
Yeah.
My brother had brown hair, and my sister had red hair.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, my brothers probably more resembled my mother than I did.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, and then Craig, I found him hilarious.
Oh, he was he and I did not get along very well early. After we got out of school, and certainly after I got married, we became much closer, and enjoyed each other a lot.
Yeah, and he was. I thought he always had. Felt like he always had a story.
Yeah, he did. He was a talker. I don't know. He was a lot like Dad. He just talked and talked and talked, and would talk to anybody. My dad was that way as well. He'd go up and start talking to anybody. I'm more like my mother. I can do it. I don't like to do it. I don't look forward to doing it. I'm more reserved.
Yeah.
Craig was definitely a talker. Sometimes he talked so much you had to tell him to shut up. And I did.
Well, good. And Craig's partner Tom, I always thought they were a really good mix.
Yeah, Tom, I think, was a perfect partner for Craig. Craig, a little bit common sense wise. That was always kind of the thing, as I always felt like I had the common sense. My brother was a smart one.
Yeah.
But his common sense was somewhat lacking, and Tom filled that role in their partnership. Tom took care of the things that my brother was maybe didn't have quite the skills and talents for. But
Yeah.
I thought they were a very good match.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was happy too that Craig at the end of his life could sort of help us plan Kate and I's wedding out there.
Yes, yeah. That was. I know you and Kate got engaged in his front yard.
That's right. Yeah.
And one of the places that he had taken Diane and I to, Mom and I to, was a place called Crystal Cove.
Yeah.
Was he with us when we went out there?
I don't think
remember.
so.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I know we took you and Kate out to Crystal Cove, and
Yeah.
you guys liked it too, and that's where you decided to get married.
Yeah.
That was very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was indeed. Any final thoughts then, Dad, on any Grandpa, Grandma, Craig, Dan?
No, I think probably that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, we will head on in to Estherville proper here and check out a couple more places. We'll see you there.